Hello and welcome to the Classic Car Weekly podcast, the sibling podcast to the popular weekly title. I'm this week's host, Jesse Billington, the staff writer, and I'm joined by our content editor, James Peen, for a bit of a short one this week. Obviously, we're in a bind for time because we've got a bank holiday ahead of us. So, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Can't complain. You know, it's bank holidays, deadlines. It is what it is.
It's nice to have the bank holiday, but also it means our deadline gets shifted forwards by essentially 3 days, because anything you think, I might be able to squeeze that in over the weekend, you suddenly lose because we've got to go on the Friday.
Yeah, and then you sort of relax thinking, oh, Monday's great. And then, oh no, you come back and it's another day. It's all like always having homework.
Yeah, you sort of get back in on the Tuesday and go, hang on, now I've still got to do all the things that I would have done on Monday anyway. So we sort of lose 2 days somehow out of the whole of this debacle. But that's not to complain. We'll kick off, as we usually do, with an Hour Classics catch-up. How's it been going? Because I know you've been busy with your fleet recently with a lot of work going on, a lot of projects and tinkering with the cars.
Yeah, I mean, weirdly enough, just before you came online, I spent 5 minutes ordering some new brake lines for the Beetle because I did fix my leaky rear caliper. I managed to sort that out. And then, the line has popped a leak. So there's a new one of those winging its way towards me as we speak. And also a week ago today, I had the DVLA come out and inspect the Beetle. So they said 2 weeks possibly, and I should get a registration through. So hopefully a week from now, I should have a number plate for it.
Yeah. We should have an update in about a week's time. Because, yeah, I think with the brake thing, though, it was one of the things I feared with the Jimny when I did the brakes on the rear of that. I was like, all I know I'm doing is just moving the problem inevitably further and further up the line. So I'm like, okay, we'll see how this goes. But so far, touch wood, that's been fine since I did the rear brakes on it. And it is still drinking coolant, though. So I'm worried about where it's putting all of the coolant, because I have to keep topping it up. So maybe there is a line that's not quite seated going into the manifold, but it's fine. It's not overheating.
Oh, this is why air cooled is better.
Yeah, it was running pretty much air cooled over winter, but thankfully it was a cold enough winter that wasn't too much of an issue. But yeah, I need to chase that problem out at the moment. But I also realised I'd got the cables the wrong way around when I refitted the dashboard. So the direction control knob is now the temperature knob, and the temperature knob is direction control. So the little sort of actuating cables, I put them onto the wrong hooks when I put it all back in. But
oh, I've got the same thing to do this weekend as well, because the temperature control knob on it's not the control knob, it's the one that directs air down to your footwell or up to the windscreen. The little plastic wheel on the back of my knob is broken, so I have got a replacement kit, but the dashboard is sort of half in, half out at the moment. So if I get 5 minutes at the weekend, I'll be able to swap that over.
Should be a fun job. But anyway, we're not here to talk entirely about our classics. We'll dive into the main news story this week, which was, of course, the tragic fire at Bicester Motion and their sort of rebuilding and moving on process. And obviously, it's very sad news, but there's been sort of glimmers of hope, and certainly in the issue we're putting together at the moment, this sort of great well of support from the community as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we first saw the story breaking, the amount of people that were posting on social media was kind of overwhelming, wasn't there? There was so much stuff to read through. I think that's just sort of continued on as the week has passed. I mean, it is a week yesterday, wasn't it? So yeah, people are still very much interested in what's going on and showing their support left, right, and centre.
Yeah, I know the fire sort of started on the Thursday last week, so it is quite literally just sort of a week and a day since that all sort of broke out, and obviously the news developed. We sort of saw it going into the Thursday, it developed in through the Friday, and it was, yeah, sort of tragic circumstances. We sort of found out sort of not just the loss of vehicles and the loss of the building, but also the very sad loss of life that went with it, the two firefighters and the member of the public who was sort of working at Bicester at the time. And there's been sort of the support from the companies and restoration businesses and the rally clubs and the sort of traders that work at Bicester has been phenomenal. Sort of the sort of outpouring of sort of spoken support, and it's been one of those moments where you sort of go, there is a great sort of deal of support and community within the classic car world, but it's unfortunate that we only seem to see it in those times of great sadness.
I think that's absolutely it. It's like you take things for granted, don't you, until something terrible happens, and then actually you think, we're very lucky to what we have in this country. Somewhere like Bicester is an amazing classic car hub, and if something to happen to it, and the loss of life, but something to happen to a venue like that is quite shocking, really.
And I think we'll be sort of free to mention at this point, because it is across social media now, that Bicester is looking to sort of move on and sort of carry on and is looking to host events as it moves forwards. Because, of course, with earliest day, Petrol Hedonism, the event organisers for Wheeler Dealers Live, have mentioned that they will be going ahead with the show, but they've got some additional elements that they're now bringing along to it that are going to have moments of reflection and moments of sort of just sort of basically sort of honoring sort of the lives that were lost and sort of making sure that they don't move on in too sort of fast and callous a manner. And I think that's a really nice and appropriate way that they're sort of making this distinction.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, there's been like a 2 minute silence held across for all the fire stations in the UK, and I believe that we do live. They're going to do a similar thing as well.
Mm. And they're sort of they've got memorial spaces that are being set up. So there is opportunity, even though the event will still be going on, for people to still attend and sort of have a brief moment where they can appropriately sort of grieve and share memories of the sort of the lives lost. So it's going to be one of those sort of unique ones where obviously events are going to want to move on and the site is going to want to rebuild, but with such a sort of recent and impactful event, you can't just simply sort of go, oh well, and move on. There has to be this sort of appropriate decorum, and it's nice to see that sort of there are events that are taking those appropriate steps as well, and it's that sort of that shining beacon of good behavior that you'd want to see from your own community.
Absolutely. And Iconic Auctioneers has said today that obviously they will still be holding their sale over Wheeler Deal Live weekend. There'll be the 3 minute silence, I believe they're going to have, and also they're going to have a charity auction with proceeds donated to the firefighters charity, and a second charity chosen by the family of David Chester, who passed away in the fire. There'll be designated remembrance site, offering visitors a space for quiet reflection. And also, Iconically said they will donate 50% of their catalogue sales and 2 tickets to Silverstone Festival as well. So, it's all good ways of raising money for, a terrible thing that's happened.
It's the respect and sort of fact that the show is looking to stand as sort of a symbol of strength, passion, and togetherness is one of those things that I think the classic car community can sort of really sort of build on and lean on as sort of a positive symbol beyond our own realm. Obviously, a lot of people will be paying attention to this event as it goes on, because obviously this is something that spans through its unfortunate nature broader than the classic car world. So being able to sort of have what's set to be a very sort of unified and thoughtful event sort of move on and sort of upholds sort of the good nature of the classic car world in sort of a very sort of positive aspect.
Well, that's it. I mean, I think the classic car thing is we all live in our own little bubble, don't we? And actually, when something like this happens, you see the ripples are felt far and wide. So I believe there's a Just Giving page has been created, a number of them actually, to raise money for the two firefighters who died, well, through the firefighters charity. There's one that was set up by the Bicester Rugby Football Union Club, of which there's two firefighters are members. And as it stands, they raised £20,000 at the time of going to press, and they were still, money was still rolling in.
Yeah, it's really positive. It's hard to say it's a positive news story given what it's based on, but it's again one of those things, if you get those positive news stories that unfortunately emerge from sort of disastrous occurrences. But yeah, it's sort of very much dominated the classic car world of news recently. We'll touch on a few of the other points that we've got in the current issue, and importantly, the promising news that despite the dissolution of the all-party parliamentary historic vehicle group, classic voices will still be heard in Parliament. And this is a very sort of important and sort of quite an influential group, certainly from the aspect of classic car owners and enthusiasts, and the fact that it was all party, it meant that there was this ability for voices to be heard regarding the classic industry without bias or without side. And while it has sort of been dissolved and sort of put away for the time being, there is sort of promise that the people who represented it in Parliament will still be sort of upstanding for the needs of the community.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to have some voices on the inside, isn't it, really? Sort of fighting our corner and raising issues before they become major issues outside. So, yeah, the fact there hasn't been anybody doing that, it's not ideal, but, it is rolling in.
Yeah, and I know that Sir Greg Knight was sort of formerly a chair of it and an important figure, and has sort of said that they will continue to sort of be a spoken sort of figurehead for the classic car within the House of Parliament, as well as a few other MPs as well. So there is again there is other news still swirling around the classic car world and positive news at that. Just trying to think sort of through what other bits and pieces we've got included in this week's issue. Obviously, there is the classic rally up to the Northern Lights that's sort of seen a great trek of classic cars on an 18-day Arctic Odyssey. There's some brilliant cars coming up through auction. It's worth making note actually that this week the next no, it is in this current issue, isn't it? We've got David's sort of monthly auction roundup as well.
Yeah, he's been crunching the numbers. I don't envy him doing that, but yeah, it's a valuable insight into what's going on in the auction world.
There's been some significant figures, some huge sales as well when you look at sort of certainly the breadth of what's gone through and across the auction block, and some unique cars as well. I know that he's pulled highlight for a Volvo 340 that has just 137 miles on the clock, and a bit of a steal really for something so showroom fresh at £8,208 when ACA saw it away in April.
It's one of those things. I think when I was younger, I wouldn't look twice at a Volvo, but now you get to approach sort of middle age or beyond as I am, and you suddenly think, actually, boxy Volvo, really interesting car. Yeah.
It's there's a certain interest in them, but yeah, it's certainly a packed issue. Obviously, the news pages are a little dominated by one story, but elsewhere there's plenty of good news abounding, as well as our classics. We've got, let me check on my notes. Richard's Aston Martin gets a fresh set of carpets, and on the flip side, other Richard Gunn has been getting some rust treatment done to his Fiat Panda. So two sort of polar opposites of the classic car world, dare we say, both owned by Richards.
Chasing rust on a Fiat, that's a shocker.
Yes, yeah, it's yeah, unknown for them to do that. That's a very bizarre thing for him to deal with. And obviously the lead feature in this week's issue, we pit the Mini Cooper against the Peugeot 205 GTI, essentially two answers to a similar question, but separated by the decades. Have you owned either of those two? I can't remember.
I haven't personally owned one. I did borrow a 205, but that was a diesel. I had that for about a month, and I seem to remember thinking the fuel gauge was broken on it because it never ever seemed to need any fuel.
Hmm. That's a positive news then. If you're looking to buy a Peugeot 205, James's recommendation is what would that be? That'd be a CD, I should think, wouldn't it?
It
And it
was
wouldn't have even
slow.
been a CDI, yeah.
It was slow, but it was really good on fuel, and it was the most comfortable car I've ever driven. For some reason, it had very comfy seats, and obviously, being of my age, most of my friends had minis when I was a kid.
Mm.
When I was younger, that's what we all started on: Beetles, minis, and terrible examples of similarly cheap cars, which are now classics.
Yes, yeah, interesting how that progression goes. I've yet to own either of those two, but I've driven a few minis, and I have to say, it's a sweet handling car, but reports suggest that the 205 can run it close for sort of back road joy. So it's worth reading that and gaining the opinion as to which way that we sort of flip the coin to see which way it lands, really.
I think they're two very different cars, though, aren't they? I mean, let's be honest. As much as you love a Mini, a 205 hatchback, you know, feels a lot more modern, doesn't it? It's just horses for courses.
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting piece, and I think the owners bring an interesting argument to both of their cars. So again, a piece well worth reading. Otherwise, we'll round out this week's podcast on very much the short side, as we've mentioned, we've got a very busy sort of final few hours of press day ahead of us. Otherwise, in next week's issue, we've got Mike Brewer's Clever Classics. I'm out and about in a Rover P5B coupe, and there's another Volvo actually to mention, a Volvo 480 Turbo in the Next Gen Diaries. I've always quite fancied those.
Oh, my dad had one of those when they were new.
Oh,
Yeah, I remember it being very cool. Loved the headlights on it, but I remember an absolute swathe of electrical issues with it. So, yeah, it was
yeah.
also the first car I remember ever having like heated seats in as well.
Hmm. Wonder what the first car to ever come out with heated seats would have been then, because the 480 was what, late 70s, early 80s? I can't remember
Yeah,
how much earlier you'd have to go to find the first example of a heated seat fitted car.
it was the first one in the Peen family to have heated seats. I do remember that, and I didn't like it because it made me feel like I was wetting myself.
I remember the first car we had in the family with heated seats was my mum's 2007 Astra, and yeah, to date we still have that car actually. It still floats around in the fleet somewhere. But yeah, that was interesting. Great on a cold day because it would sort of toast you through. But yeah. I think certainly as a child, it was a very strange sensation to come to terms with. But anyway, we're getting completely sidetracked as we often do. Remember, of course, that this is just the short sibling podcast to the title. Obviously, pick up the main newspaper, give it a read, and let us know what you think. Obviously, it's out and in all good news agents and some slightly terrible ones too. And like I said, we'll be back next week, hopefully with a slightly fuller and slightly more upbeat podcast, as well as another issue of Classic Car Weekly. James, thank you very much for joining me.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
And I'll leave you. What have you got planned for the weekend? Have you got more work undergoing, I guess? You mentioned obviously sorting out the heating controls on the van.
Yeah, we have children coming around to play with my little gal, and so I'm going to try and escape out to the driveway and fix the heating controls on the van at the very least, and then hopefully get it advertised. Get it gone.
Times. Very nice. Right, so plenty to keep you occupied, and obviously, dear listener, in the meantime, you should be occupied reading the latest edition of Classic Car Weekly.